Hey there, friends, and welcome to the Define Success podcast. I'm your host, Bailey Guy. Join us as we empower you to turn your can'ts into cans and your aspirations into achievements. Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the Define Success podcast. I'm Bailey Guy, and our guest today is so amazing. This is Kellye Cash Sheppard. She's a former Miss America. And she's also the great niece of Johnny Cash, which is just so cool. So I will go ahead and read her bio if you haven't heard of her. So following her year as Miss America 1987, which included performances with her great uncle, Johnny Cash, Bob Hope, and Lee Greenwood, Kellye returned to college in Memphis, Tennessee to continue her studies in speech, piano, voice, and to launch her career as a performer and speaker. Kellye continued her community service platform, which was substance abuse awareness, by becoming the first spokesperson for the Governor's Alliance for Drug-Free Tennessee, which became the official Miss Tennessee platform. Kellye now resides in Milan, Tennessee, with her husband and 3 adult children, a son Brady and daughters Cassidy and Tatum. Tatum was crowned Miss Virginia in 2021. Kellye stays busy working in the Bethel University Music Department, as her church music director, a piano and voice teacher, a concert artist, and as a musical director for community theater productions. Since 2001, Kellye has worked in professional theater. Some of her roles include Donna in Mamma Mia, Annie in Annie Get Your Gun, and the narrator in Joseph, and Patsy Cline, a role she became very known for, in Always Patsy Cline. But Kellye's favorite role is grandmother, or Cookie, to Brady and Lauren's daughters, Sutton and Molly Sheppard. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
I'm just so excited to talk with you. It's crazy how long that we've known each other.
I know. It's good to see you. And I'm sure you're very fond of the name Kellye, by the way.
Yes. So my mom's name is Kellye,
yes.
Which kind of goes back to the first time that we ever met, which was about 10 years ago now.
Yeah.
Oh gosh, I was 12 or so. Yeah, I was about 11 or 12. Yeah, I think around that age. And it was my very first time going and watching Miss Tennessee's Outstanding Teen in Jackson, Tennessee. And you happened to be sitting in the seat right next to me. And then my mom was on the other side of me. So I was sitting between you guys, and someone a few rows back said, "Hey, Kellye." And you both turned around. Yeah.
It was a Kellye sandwich.
And then that's when I realized, and I look over at you and I'm like, "Were you Miss America?" And you're like, "Yeah."
Yes, back in the 1900s.
Yeah. And so that was the very first time that we ever met. And I was just starstruck because you were the first Miss America that I'd ever met, which was just so cool.
It's actually sweet when people actually remember that I was Miss America. So that's it's kind of a running joke in my family that people often in Tennessee will say, "Oh, you were Miss Tennessee," and they will totally forget that I was Miss America. And my kids will say, "She was also Miss America."
Yeah.
It's really cute. They'll go, "Oh, you're that Miss Tennessee," and they'll just totally forget that I was also Miss America. So
Yeah.
it's always nice to be recognized that I was also Miss America.
Yes. And my 11 or 12-year-old self knew exactly who you were. And I was very thrilled. And then, but actually, to make it even funnier, my mom had actually met you when you were Miss Tennessee, and you had just been crowned Miss Tennessee, and it was in Memphis, and she was in a restaurant with her friends, and you walk in the door, and her friend goes, "Oh, there's Miss Tennessee."
Now that's actually pretty special because I was only Miss Tennessee for 3 months, because back then you were only your state title for 3 months before you competed at Miss America. I mean, you only had a little time to get ready. Nowadays you have a good 6 months to get ready for Miss America, but back then, man, you won your state title and you were like off to Miss America. So
yeah.
If you won Miss America, you were not your state title very long.
Yeah, you had just been crowned Miss Tennessee, and so that was it's just so many full circle moments here happening. And then my mom's name being Kellye as well is sweet. Yeah, and then we ran into each other more recently at Miss America in Orlando, which was really cool in January.
Did you get home okay? Hayden and I got stuck in Orlando.
We were really, really worried that we would, because it was snowing so much in Nashville the day that we flew back. And I think my flight was the last one that they let go, and they canceled all the flights after.
Yeah,
they had already canceled the flights after mine.
Hayden and I got stuck, and we did not get home till Wednesday.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
No, we were literally on the plane, like about to take off, and they canceled all the flights behind us. but they let ours go.
That was us. But it was Orlando, so we're like, oh well,
there are worse places to be.
I'll admit, we did go to Disney World, so we were like, oh well, we had to go to Disney World. Darn,
Oh, shucks.
Oh shucks. And we got in free because a friend did like one of his YouTube channel little things, and he said, well, hey, I'm covering the I don't know, it was like the food festival at Epcot. He goes, I can get you in free, but I'll have to feature you on our channel. And went, okay. And he did. So we had to spend the day with, hey, what do you think about this? So I mean, it was worth it because it was free. So.
Yeah. That's amazing. Well, so I love hearing about your experiences as Miss America, and about, I mean, it's just such an incredible accomplishment that you had getting to do that. And you're the only Miss Tennessee to ever win Miss America, because there's one other Miss America from Tennessee from 1947, Barbara Jo Walker, but she was Miss Memphis because they sent local title holders.
It's unusual because a lot of people think that she was Miss Tennessee, and it's kind of interesting that that she was Miss Memphis, because several people have asked that before. And Tatum, during her local pageant, the second year that she competed in Miss Virginia, was asked that, and a judge said, how many Miss Tennessees have won Miss America? So it was like a trick question, and she thought, well, that's interesting, and she said, one, my mom, Kellye Cash, Miss America 1907, and he said, no, two Miss Tennessees. And she didn't know what to say. She didn't want to go against him. So later on, I had to correct him and say, well, no, Barbara Walker Hummel was not Miss Tennessee. She was Miss Memphis. And what happened is the JCs did not like the Miss Tennessee who won. Like, they were unhappy with the results. So they bought a franchise. They literally called up Miss America, and anyone could do that. In fact, Canada competed in the Miss America pageant that year. Canada, and they weren't, even in the United States, and they competed in Miss America. So the JCs bought a franchise, and they didn't hold a pageant. They just crowned Barbara Walker. Like, she did not even compete. They just said, we want Barbara Walker to, she was, of course, Hummel is her married name. And they crowned her, and she competed, and she won. So Miss Tennessee did compete that year. She just didn't win. And so that's why in the Miss Tennessee program book, you'll never see Barbara Walker, because she wasn't Miss Tennessee. Miss Tennessee did compete, and she didn't win. Miss Memphis won. So, and it was several years later that they made it, a state franchise. And then several years later, they allowed, Puerto Rico and DC. Well, DC had been competing for a while, I think, and they allowed some other territories to compete. So it's really kind of interesting.
Yeah. Well, one thing about me is I know my Miss America history. So I've been researching.
Tatum was just like, she didn't want to like correct him. She just, so
like,
anyway, the one, it was weird. That was a weird moment.
Yeah. Well, wow. So you're the only Miss Tennessee. It was one Miss America with the Miss Tennessee title. So let's go back to that moment. So you were also one that was crowned from the top 10, which is unusual. So instead of calling a top 5 and going fourth, third, second, first, and then the winner, you were called from the top 10. So I'm sure that was a little more stressful.
That was, and I go back and forth because, it is kind of exciting to have the last two, but now that I've seen so many pageants through the years, I realize it's how important the first runner-up is. And I'll admit, I like the first runner-up getting her moment, and when you're called up from the top 10, the first runner-up gets recognized. She gets a full moment. She gets her walk. She gets her flowers. Everyone is cheering excitedly for that first runner-up. And I'll admit, I kind of like that olden way of doing it, because you're just waiting and waiting. And then, believe it or not, people just really remember that moment. And then there's 6. And you're looking, and you might think that who's won. You might be thinking about the prelims, but back in my day, there was kind of this double prelim curse. They're like, oh, those double preliminary winners, they don't always win, because there have been several through the years. In fact, I think the year before me, and it may have been Miss Ohio, but I might be wrong. was a double preliminary winner who had not won. And so there was
Mhm.
this kind of thing like, oh, those double preliminary winners don't win. And I think maybe the year before that same thing. And so that people would be like, well, those double prelim winners, they don't win, and so you kind of have that moment where you're wondering who really won. And so I don't know, I liked it that way, just because those runner-ups really get recognized. But it is kind of nerve-wracking, because even if you think you've won, there's 5 other girls. So you don't really know. You're just kind of holding hands and thinking. But I'll admit, after the second runner-up was called out, that I had tied swimsuit with the second runner-up. And I don't know what it was about the second runner-up being called out, because I realized that it could have been anyone. Something about her being called out made me think that I had won. And I realized that it could have been anyone. And obviously I could have been called out the first runner-up, but there was something about her being called out that I thought, oh, I think I've won. I think that was the moment where I thought, I think I've won right then.
Wow. Well, that actually answers another one of my questions, because Savvy Shields talks about how the night before she won, that she was laying on the stage and they were in rehearsals and she was wearing her gown, and that God told her that she was the winner. And he basically asked her if she was
I
ready.
didn't know that. I love Savvy. Oh my
Yeah.
goodness.
And
Oh,
so, and that the next morning she was at some sort of an event and her family was there, and that she was looking around like, am I the only one who knows? Like, did they know? And that it turns out that her mom actually also knew, because God had also laid it on her mom's heart at the same time that Savvy was going to win. And so I was
that
actually
is
going to ask you if there was ever a moment where you were
funny.
like, oh my gosh,
Well,
I'm Miss America.
so my mom and I were opposite. My mom completely knew that I was going to win Miss America. She had T-shirts made that said Kellye Cash Miss America when I won Miss America. So we were opposite. I felt very confident that I would win Miss Tennessee. My mom, I'm not sure if she was as confident on Miss Tennessee, but I think it was because I felt like everyone had an equal chance at Miss Tennessee. We were, I don't know why I felt that way, because, you can go to Miss Tennessee over and over again. But I just, for some reason, I just looked at everyone and thought, I have as good a chance as everyone else. I don't know why I felt that way. But Miss America, I just got there, and the contestants, I just did not feel up to par. I mean, I remember looking at them and thinking they looked perfect. Whereas Miss Tennessee, I was like, oh yeah, I got this. I just felt like I was equal with them. But Miss America, that I just felt like, oh, they've done this for years. And then especially when I got to swimsuit competition, they looked perfect. And then there was a Juilliard pianist, and I was just like, I am not as good a pianist. I don't know. It was a little bit more overwhelming at Miss America, but at Tennessee, I felt a lot more confident, and, but I don't know, Miss Tennessee, Miss America, I remember, like, after swimsuit pictures, we had, we ran on the beach, we did pictures, we all this stuff. I can remember just having like a meltdown in front of my mother, and just being like, oh, I'm so fat, I'll never do this. I just had this, like, weird thing with my mother. And she just did one of these, like, holy God moments, that those godly moms do. And she was just like, if God wants you to win, do you not remember what you have been, praying all summer? 1 Peter 3:3-4, that your beauty should not be that of the outward adornments, just the wearing of gold jewelry, fine clothes, and braided hair, but it should be that of the gentleness of spirit, which is of great worth of God's sight. If God wants you to win, and I was having that, I'm so fat, I have thunder thighs kind of thing. She said, the judges won't see your thighs. And I was like, the judges won't see your thighs. And I was just expecting Mom to be like something else. And she was just like letting me know, if God wants you to win, the judges won't see that. You're just going to, and I was just like, I was wanting something different. But what she was saying was like, actually, it doesn't matter. She was just like, the judges aren't going to see any of that, because if God wants you to win, it's in his hands. And it was like that night that I went, okay, it doesn't matter. And the next day I had my interview, and I was like, you know what? It doesn't matter. If God wants me to win, it's in his hands. If he doesn't, I'm just going to be like everybody else. The majority of the girls don't win, Yeah. And it was good. After that, I was like, okay, I wasn't nervous. I went out of my interview, and that was when I knew I could win. Like, I didn't know I'd won, but I was just like, oh, I can win this because I had a great interview. I just knew. I was just like, I knew that I answered every question the way I needed to. I felt at complete peace. I knew my talent was good. I mean, everything, and I still never knew I had won. But after all the competition on Saturday night, I knew it was in God's hands. And I knew that I could have won. I mean, I wasn't nervous. I was just like, that's it. But I think I was more confident at Miss Tennessee. Seriously.
Wow.
I never had a meltdown at Tennessee. I didn't. And I did better at Miss America. I won 2 prelims. At Miss Tennessee, I only won swimsuit,
Okay.
So I didn't win talent, but
I don't know. That's a surprise because you're an amazing singer.
Well, I got beat by a dancer who was out of this world, a little 17-year-old dancer who was just like, I mean, when she finished, we all went. So I was just like, yeah, girl, and she went right after me too. I was like, okay, yeah, that's later on. She was like in some Michael Jackson video. I mean, she was that good. And I never did know what happened to her, but she was just great. So,
yeah. And did you win Miss Tennessee on your first try, or did it take you another try?
I won on my first try, but back then they had a ridiculous rule, and I can say this now because it's a different organization now, where you can only do it twice. So everyone was there for their first or second time. And they finally, the Miss America organization was like, okay, you can't do that. So the girls back then could only compete twice. So everyone was there for 1 or 2 times. Like, that was it. Ridiculous. And the age, back then was something like, 18 to 24 or something. Mm-hmm. And you could only compete twice. I think that's why I thought I had as good a chance as anybody else.
Yeah.
Because the girls were there 1 or 2 times. That was it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then Miss America finally said, no, you cannot do that. And they were like, well, we just don't want the same girls hogging all the scholarship. And they were like, but that's the point, And so they changed that rule. But I was just in that era where you could only enter it twice.
Wow.
Yeah. So that was, I think that's why I felt like, oh, well, I've got just as good a chance as anybody. I mean, you can only enter twice. So
mm-hmm. Yeah.
Wow. But yeah, that did not last very long. I think that may have lasted maybe like 5 years or something. Yeah. It did not last very long.
Yeah. Well, if you were to be a judge for Miss America now, and with today's everything, what qualities do you think that you would look for in a title holder to know that she was ready to take on Miss Tennessee or Miss America?
Well, I think nowadays, probably then too, I kind of look for the girl that has the whole package. I think the scholarship competition and the whole competition now is kind of the young woman who has a little bit of everything. I don't think anyone has to have everything, but the whole package means, the young woman who needs a scholarship, but who is talented, who speaks well, who is a good brand ambassador. I think that the Miss America program is for that young woman who is kind of that girl that does everything. It's kind of the not the jack of all trades, master of none, because they are masters of some things, but the girl that maybe doesn't have the full academic scholarship, the full talent scholarships, the person who's not on a full athletic scholarship, but who does a lot of those things. And so they need help going to college and a scholarship opportunity, but has their hands in a lot of different aspects and can be on television and talk about their, what do we call it now? It's not social impact initiative. CSI, they change it so often, but can also go into a boardroom, who can have a podcast, who can go into a classroom and talk to young people, the type person that can be at home and talking to, kids, family, and friends, but then can also be on television and talking about whatever is going on in the world or their CSI, that kind of person that is the woman of tomorrow. And so I'm always looking for that person who can be engaging and, like I said, not jack of all trades, master of none, but jack of all trades and master of a lot of things, I guess. Mm-hmm. But, not the perfect person, but the person who is striving to be good at a lot of things.
Yeah, very well-rounded.
Yes, very well rounded. But again, I'm tired of a society who thinks that you have to be perfect. And I think that we're past that. But the media many times, faults us in, oh, well, you didn't do this and you didn't do that. And I'm kind of sick of that. I don't think we have to be perfect, but I think if we're striving to be good at a lot of things or even excellent at one thing, I think that's absolutely good enough.
Yeah. I think that's one thing that really sets Miss America apart from any other, even just like, even outside of pageants. I mean, obviously like in pageants, but even other organizations that are for women, it really sets Miss America apart because they are looking for somebody who is so well-rounded. And so I totally agree with that, who has their hands in a lot of things, like you said. That's a really good way of describing kind of like what the personality is for a Miss America. Okay, well, so how has being Miss America changed your life the most or impacted you in the time since then?
I think the way that it's impacted me the most is probably in community service. In my era, it wasn't part of the competition. I think that even though it wasn't part of the competition, it's a very natural avenue for the girls that even the young ladies who even competed decades before me to be part of community service. But I don't think that as a college student that I realized that one person can make a difference in a community, because I was just like a typical church kid. And to me, community service was doing things in my church and reaching out to my community. But I don't think that I had the concept that one person made a difference, because everything I did involved a lot of people. Like we, might do things, and it was always, going on a mission trip, and a lot of us doing, this, that, and the other thing. Well, once I won the Miss America pageant, I got contacted by someone from Nancy Reagan's team, which was called a program called Just Say No. Now, Just Say No to Drugs was a pretty effective program in the substance abuse.
I remember Just Say No and like Red Ribbon.
Yeah.
They did that in elementary school.
And it was pretty good. Now, obviously, there has to be more than Just Say No. But I mean, it was a very good start in substance abuse treatment. And when I got contacted by it, I mostly was contacted because of my uncle being Johnny Cash and because I've been on a news program. And I was asked about if there was an issue that I was interested in. And I said, well, yeah. I think I said something about being a Cash, and the issue that has always been dear to my heart was substance abuse treatment, because of seeing it in my family and the impact that it's had on my family. Well, someone from our office saw that and they contacted me. And the next thing I knew, anytime I had free time in my schedule, I was at a Just Say No rally, or I was representing her in an event, in a parade. And the next thing I knew after that is, even when my reign was over as Miss America, I was contacted for being a spokesperson, starting at a program in Tennessee that you read in my bio, that then even became the platform for the Miss Tennessee program and their official platform. And that's when I realized that I was just like one person that someone saw on Good Morning America. And it started a whole series of programs and events in the entire state of Tennessee. And then every Miss Tennessee after me started becoming the spokesperson for that program. And then that became the character education platform for Miss Tennessee. And then to this day, although now it's the Miss Tennessee volunteer platform, because they kept the state platform, and now Miss Tennessee does something else, but it started the character education platform for the Miss Tennessee pageant. And I was just one person who just said that on a TV program. And I thought, if I, as one person, can make a difference, every one of us as a Miss, whoever we are, or anybody anywhere in America or the world, can make a difference, no matter what our platform or what our area of expertise is, or whatever we're doing can make a difference. And I just don't think I had that concept, not being a national figure, that we could make a difference in the world. And then I thought about my Uncle Johnny, who did have substance abuse issues all throughout his life. And I started thinking about the fact that once he became public with his substance abuse problems, how he reached out to Hollywood and how people would contact him and how he would get him into the Betty Ford clinic. That was what the avenue it was back then for substance abuse. And I thought, you know what? Even he made a difference. And at his funeral, you saw stars and people, come up and talk about how much he made a difference. And so I think that my mindset changed during my years Miss America, and that was just huge. And I still see that today. So one person, like, you want more than one person to make a difference, but one person really can't make a difference.
Yeah. And, anecdotally on that is, I don't know, we've probably never talked about this, but, I'm from Hendersonville, and that's where Johnny Cash lived. And
yes,
he's actually buried about 10 feet from my grandparents. They're in the same.
Oh, you're at First Baptist, Hendersonville?
At the Hendersonville Memorial Gardens. It's
yeah,
real close. And I never knew that until I knew that, of course, that he was that funeral home, which is where everyone who's passed away in my family has all had their funerals in that certain funeral home. And there's pictures of Johnny Cash on the wall. And it's very obvious that that's where his funeral was. And so it is well advertised. So I always knew that he was there, but I had never actually seen the actual grave and everything. And last year I went, because I'd never seen my grandparents where they'd been buried. And so I went, and I was like, hey, because I never met them. They passed away before I was born. And so I asked somebody who worked at the funeral home, I was like, hey, can you look up their names and tell me where they're buried? And so we look up their names, and he walks me out there, and I'm like, well, it's 10 feet from Johnny Cash, which is
wow,
really cool. Yeah, I took a picture, and I was like, look at this. Yeah, I guess it might have been around the same time or something, but yeah, so
I haven't
so close.
I just think the funeral was at First Baptist Hendersonville, and it was and then we walked the graveside. So I must be walking distance to the funeral home, I guess.
Yeah,
because we walked there from the church. So yeah.
Interesting. Okay, I used to go to First Baptist growing up as a kid, so I don't exactly. I'm very directionally. It's not my forte, but I'm sure they are close. It's all in Hendersonville. But
there's so many people. We probably walked because there were so many people at the funeral, and then they only let a few of us go to the graveside. Well, they only let family. Mm-hmm. Well, family, Hank Williams Jr. and Rock, actually, and Chris Christopherson.
Yeah,
specifically. Those are, yes, isn't that funny? The family and 3 very close friends. So yeah,
that's so cool.
Kind of celebrity close friends. So
yeah, I'd never seen where he was buried until I went and saw my grandparents, and they're all.
And you know what? Well, I haven't been back there since then. Well, I mean, Johnny, I went to June's and Johnny's, and then his older sister died a month before June, but I didn't. Louise, I didn't go to hers, but yeah, they're all buried at the same spot. So
yeah, it's
right.
How
there. Interesting.
I feel like if I laid down, I'd touch all of them.
That's funny.
It's that close. But we've never talked about that before. But so there's just another little connection that we have.
Another connection. Yep.
The list continues. So a question that I have been very curious about, since I'm sure you've done a lot of reflecting on that time as Miss America and about the experience leading up and from Miss Tennessee and preparing and everything like that, and the week itself of Miss America. And I would love to know what, in your opinion, do you think is what the judges saw in you and what made you the winner, or what, stood you apart from everybody else? If you had to reflect on your time at Miss America.
Wow. Well, what I've heard, because I think I've seen most of my judges since then, because one was Sam Haskell, who used to run, and he was one of my judges, and Theodore Raquel, who was a actor. He actually came and saw me in a show that I did, and a couple of others that I have seen through the years. Back when I won, talent was 50% of the competition. And I would say part of it was talent competition, because back then talent was a huge part of the Miss America competition. But the other part was interview competition. Interview did not count as much back then, but the 80s was very look at pictures. I don't know. The girls were very pageant-y with pageant hair and I don't know, prim proper. I'm not sure. All the girls looked alike, and had very pageant answers and very poised, not that I wasn't poised, but I wasn't a pageant girl. I entered my first pageant and won Miss America 6 months later. And I think, according to a lot of the judges, it was, kind of two things. I entered the room and I just was not pageant-y. I answered the questions. I laughed. I didn't know one of the answers because it was a really weird question. Jodie Goodman, who's a comedian, she was in the movie Grease.
Yeah.
She was the kind of crazy principal who did crazy things, asked me if when I had children, if I wanted a midwife. And I had to think, midwife. Oh, midwife. And I said, I just looked at her and went, I don't know. I really thought about that. And Sam Haskell went, maybe you should give her a call. I went, yeah, I'll call you later about that. We just laughed about it and then I was asked that one of those really dumb questions, like, if you were deserted on a desert island, what 3 books? It's just, and we laughed about that. And I can't remember what I said. I did the typical, one of those Mr. novels that I never read in high school because they were too long. I did like funny answers and I did serious answers. And I knew where Beirut was because my dad was in the Navy. Something was going on in the Middle East. So I did the hard questions. I knew the things I needed to know. We laughed. I had serious, answers. And I think I just wasn't pageant-y. I gave good answers, but I wasn't just the typical pageant person. And one of the judges was Johnny Cash fan and went, is Johnny Cash coming? And I went, no, and it's just, I was just real, natural about it. And then we went on, and so I think the interview was the first thing. It's like, and we were, whatever number I was, I think maybe they'd had enough pageant people that they were like, oh, a normal person, but then again, talent was 50% and I won talent and I didn't do a pageant-y talent. It was kind of a bluesy gospel song. I sat at the piano and I sang and played the piano. And I was just like, hello, just whatever. And even though people hit really big notes now, like on American Idol, they do this thing where they're like, all of a sudden they go, they didn't do that back then. And I did. And I think I started something, which, they do now, but I think it was kind of a neat little thing, so I think I just was, again, not pageant-y. So I think that was it. And that 80s where everyone was kind of the same. Now I did have 80s hair, but I didn't know I had 80s hair. But I think, so I think that was probably it. I remember Sam Haskell saying that when I left the interview, he was like, oh, if she's got talent, that's it, and I had several, there was a judge that was interviewed in the press after talent and that said, well, there was only one talent that last night, referring to me. And that's not true. There was a lot of talents, but he was influenced, by probably interviewing other things. So I think that was it. Who knows? But I kind of think that was it. So, but I'm sure there's somebody that didn't like me, but they never told me. So either that or God ordained it, which is what my mother would say. My mother would say, God ordained it.
Yeah.
God, those judges did not see her thighs, Apparently I did not have the right thighs to win, but oh well, somehow I still won, even with my thunder thighs. It's just a miracle. Angel flew across my thighs or something like that.
Oh my, they were blinded by the light.
Yeah, that's seriously, that must have been it, because I was slim, but I'm not an athlete. So I didn't have that perfect, whatever body, but I had a slim body. I did run and exercise and do all those things, but I did not have that perfect body, but I had a slim body for sure.
Yeah. Well, as you know, and as we talked about before the podcast started, I'm competing for Miss Tennessee next month. And so it's coming up so close. But I know a lot of my listeners also are competing at their state pageants and, have that same dream of going to Miss America. And so I would love to know what your advice would be for people like me who have that same dream, and what you would tell us to,
Oh, well, now listen, I have judged Miss America, by the way.
Mhm.
And I tell people a lot of the same things. I think competing in the pageant gives you a great opportunity to be your best self in every competition. And it's really important, even though we want someone that can do everything, like I said, and be all these different things, it is very important to be your best self one thing at a time and to not let it overwhelm you. I think this idea of multitasking is really overwhelming. And I don't think you should try to do everything at the same time. Even though we want to do everything, do not try to do everything at the same time. And when you go into competition, let the judges see your best self one thing at a time, and let them see that you're multifaceted one thing at a time. I mean, seriously, when you go into interview competition, show them your best interview, and do not show them that you can win swimsuit competition in interview. That is like an old concept. We used to do that in the olden days. I have no idea why we used to do that. We used to like think, ooh, let's try to win swimsuit in interview. It was so silly. It was like this old fashioned concept where we would try to like win everything in every competition. No, nowadays, let them see all aspects of your personality. Show them your best interview in interview. And when it's time to do talent, show them how talented you are, that you can keep their attention and talent, and when it's time to do fitness, show them that you're fit and why you're fit, and that you can be confident in your, what is it called? Your rebel athletic wear. Is that what it is?
Yeah.
Rebel athletic wear, and when it is time to walk that red carpet and be in evening wear, show them that if you had the opportunity to go to the Oscars, that you would be able to keep their attention and be poised on that red carpet in evening wear. I mean, let them see that you can be your best self in all these different areas. And, Miss America does press conferences and she does interviews. So let them see all those different aspects and all those different competitions at that moment, so that they can see, yeah, I'm multifaceted. So I can be this and this, and these are all the different aspects of me in each area of competition. That's why we have these different areas of competition, and it's one thing at a time, so that when they see you, they're like, oh, she's the one that said that in interview, and then when you're in fitness, and she's fit. And did you see her in evening wear? I mean, I feel like that's kind of what's cool about the Miss America competition. You're not just someone on a sheet of paper that's competing for an academic scholarship, and you're not just a GPA and an ACT or SAT score. You're more than that. You're all these things, all wrapped up into one competition. So let them see it all.
Mm-hmm. That's really great advice. Focus on what's right ahead of you, and
right,
thinking about the other categories.
And it's kind of very much your generation. It's kind of that be in the moment, be your authentic self right then, but it's more than your authentic self. It's like your best self. It's more than smile and be yourself. Because if you're just the smile and be yourself girl, you're gonna like be in sweats watching Netflix. It's more than that. It's your best self. If you're just like, yeah, just smile and be yourself, it's like, you're not gonna dress up for that. I mean, man, you're gonna be like having popcorn and seeing what's on TV. No, it's your best self. It's you're authentic, but it's, you can be authentically your best self. I mean, when you're going to a wedding, you're going to wear your best clothes. If you're going to some big gala, if you're going to a Go Red, you're going to wear red. You're not going to show up in purple. I mean, you think about those things, you're going to be your best in all those areas. If you're going for a job interview, you're going to pick out the right outfit. You're going to put the best things on your resume. If you're going to be an electrical engineer, you're going to actually have all your engineering credits, even if you're a musician. But if you change careers and you just happen to be a classical pianist and there's a music job, you're going to put your music creds on there. You have to be your best self.
Yeah. Alrighty. Well, as we're wrapping up, is there anything else that you would like to say about your time as Miss America or just about anything in general? You have such an interesting life. And so I just love soaking up all your stories and wisdom.
Well, listen, I think the best thing I learned as a former Miss America was the year my daughter competed and didn't win. And the second best thing I learned as former Miss America was the 3 years my other daughter competed and never won Miss Tennessee. Mm-hmm. And both of them gained just as much as I gained as non-winners. My daughter Cassidy competed in Miss Tennessee 3 times and never won, and won almost as much scholarship and experience as Tatum, who did win Miss Virginia. She's a very successful marketing director and event planner for YMCA Mid-South. And what she does in fundraising and development, she gained from her years as a Miss Tennessee contestant. I cannot tell you what an outstanding and successful young lady she is. And what she learned not winning in the Miss Tennessee pageant was irreplaceable. And then what Tatum learned winning Miss Virginia and going to Miss America and not following her mother's footsteps and winning Miss America was invaluable. I told her one day, I said, you know what, as disappointing as this was, you are where most girls end up, because most girls don't walk away as Miss America. And you got to feel what most girls feel when they leave the Miss America pageant, because only one wins Miss America. Mm-hmm. And it is such, even if you're first runner up, you're not Miss America. And it's such a unique feeling that you get to bond with all those other contestants, make friends, and see them. Like, she went back to Miss America, you saw her, and they all went to Disney World and had a ball. And then Tatum and I got to go again because we got snowed in. But anyway, and I said, it is such a valuable experience to go learn from it and gain that experience of just being there, being a competitor, learning what it's like to reach for something and then go back to your state and work that year and find out what your purpose is, and being in that, getting that scholarship, the lessons learned, and find the next thing that you're supposed to do. So I think those lessons were probably as valuable as my year as Miss America.
Yeah, that's incredible. And I remember seeing Cassidy compete for Miss Tennessee, and that was, yeah, I'm sure that was such an amazing moment for you to get to see both of your daughters on stage.
Oh yeah. And there was good and bad, but would not trade any of it for anything. And they both are just, tremendous young ladies. And it's hard to not win. It's especially hard to be the mom of someone who doesn't win. But I'm telling you, they're tremendous young ladies, and it's a valuable lesson. It really is.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
It's probably hard to be Miss America's daughter, I'm guessing. I don't know. I'm thinking it might be. I don't know.
I would imagine that there was some pressure for sure.
There might have been a little bit. Except that unless you're an old Miss, I am from the 1900s, so maybe not.
Oh, but everybody still knows who you are. You don't pretend.
Well, it was, who knows?
Alrighty, well, my last question.
I'm excited for you, though. By the way, I'm so excited for you. I'm so excited when you won Miss Cap City. So, as you know, I messaged you, so you know.
Yes.
And happy late birthday. I saw it was your birthday last week. I think it was last week or the week before. I can't remember. Sometime, right?
Yes, sometime in May. 12th. So yeah, almost about a week and a half ago now. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Well, thank you. I'm 22 now. Big.
Oh, old lady. Yeah. There you go.
Yeah, I'm walking with a walker now.
Oh, there you go. Someone's
Yeah. Well, I have one more question since this is the Define Success podcast. I always wrap up my episodes by asking, how do you define success?
Well, I define it differently than a lot of people. I always hear, well, not always, a lot of people say, you have to do what makes you happy. And well, not a lot, but some people say that. And I feel that you shouldn't define success with anything having to do with feelings, because feelings can trick you and they can change. But I feel like I'm going to use the word feel. So, but I think that you have to define it in other terms, and that you have to do and define success by finding where you fit in and where you can have impact. I feel that in success in the business world and life, in church, in Christ, has to be a place where you can have impact, where you can belong, where you can see that someone is going to be changed. And sometimes that is in an area where you do something well, but sometimes it's just an area where you're changing someone's life. And it may not even be something that you do well, but it's just something that you learn to do, or something that you can do because it's going to help your family, help your community, help your area, help your work. And I think that sometimes we have to learn to do things, and it's sometimes not even something that we do well. Where I'm working right now at Bethel University, the things that I normally do well are sing and direct and perform. And during COVID, I decided to help the university as a pianist. And I'm a decent pianist, but I'm a better singer and performer and director. I'm a choir director, but I decided to help them because I can play the piano. And I am still doing it 4 years later because they need me there, because nobody plays the piano anymore. And the music department is having success there because I am willing to be there and I am needed. But that's not what I'm best at. Mm-hmm. It is not what I would ever set out to do. If you looked at my bio, it would not say accomplished pianist. I am a good pianist, but it's not what I'm best at. We were having a lot of success in the department. We've just hired a new vocal professor because that is where I was needed. That's where I fit in. And sometimes your success surprises you because that is where I fit in the music department. And I think sometimes we have to be willing to go where we are needed, where we fit in, and that just happens in life. So I feel like success comes where you are needed, where you fit in, where you're willing to help. And I think that we have to look at that. And it's not always where we think, oh, I'm going to be happy here. Because when I first started doing it, I was like, oh, I have to practice the piano. I don't want to practice the piano. But as I did it, I found out that that is where I fit in best at Bethel University. And I became a better pianist because of it. It's still not my favorite thing to do. I'll admit, I'd rather sing. I'd rather direct a show. I'd rather be touring in a show, but COVID changed that. A lot of my shows canceled. And so that right now is where I'm finding success.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's amazing. Well, I think you're just amazing. And
you're so
I just think it's incredible.
I'm sorry I had to look it up with you. I need to find a better little tripod that's not so tall, but then down it was too short. I was going to be looking down at you. So
honestly, it's a great angle. It's a great angle for you. So you look amazing. Everyone who's watching on YouTube, I'm sure, is like, and she was 1987, not 2007. Are you sure?
Last one from my church, and they're living here until we figure out what to do with them. So
yeah.
Anyway, and the rest of my house has wedding presents because Tatum's getting married. So I had no other walls I could show. And then every other wall is windows, which we know we can't do windows because then it would be like, so. Although I'd probably look younger because then there'd be so much light. So anyway, oh well.
Well, I just appreciate your time and your thoughts so much, and you being just such a nice person. We've talked a little bit since seeing each other, Miss America, and you congratulated me when I won Miss Capital City, and I just always appreciate your support so much.
I had to do something. I can't remember now, but There's no telling. With the daughter getting married and grandkids and my 2 jobs, and who knows? I have a husband too. I occasionally need to see him. I kept expecting him to walk through the door, but he didn't. He's gonna be like, "You're doing this again?" I'm like, "This is something different." So
Mhm. Well, thank you so much for just your time and all your wisdom and for sharing it with me and my listeners. Yeah,
oh,
I
you're
just really,
welcome.
really appreciate
I'm
you. And
excited for a
yeah.
month from now. So
Woo, Miss Tennessee coming up.
I
Happy
really don't know if
dance.
I'll be there because of this wedding stuff. I told Jane, I was like, "Oh, this is right for the wedding." So anyway, I hope I'll be in East Tennessee for Miss Tennessee. But anyway, we'll see.
It'll be on live stream if you can't make it.
It's about time. It hasn't been. It's been a couple times. It has not been live streamed, so I'm glad it'll be live streamed. So
Yes. At
last
least
year I
it
was.
was last year. So I think it is this year. We haven't actually
Oh,
heard
that's right.
it,
Oh,
but
you
it
know
was
what
last
happened
year.
last
So I'm
year? Last year I was at Miss Washington. That's right. I forgot. I was at Miss Washington. They were the same week. That's what happened last year. So I'm not at Miss Washington this year. So at least I can watch if I'm not there. So
yeah. Well, thank you so much. And I hope to see you there. But if I don't, I will be feeling your support from Johnson City.
oh yeah, they'll be there. And tell Kelly I said hello.
I sure will. She just got home.
Okay. Oh, okay.
Well, thank you so much for your time. And thank you everyone who has watched another episode of Define Success. See y'all next time.